Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Ahmad Yunus from International Office STIKI Malang, Indonesia. It is my pleasure to welcome you here. It's International Webinar Series 4. Today's webinar is collaboration between STIKI Malang, Indonesia and Pangasinan State University, Philippines. There are two sessions in this webinar. The first session, we have Dr. Armando Junio with the topic Education on COVID-19, Pedagogy, Learning Competency. And in the second session, we have Mr. Joshua Palandi with the topic Exploring Expected Inputs and Endpoint Outcomes of Learning Practice. The moderator is Ms. Susana Pudiastuti, the Head Office of International Affairs, STIKI Malang, Indonesia. Before we start, I would like to inform you the rules of the webinar. First, please turn off the camera and mute the microphone for avoiding connection problems and noises. Please type your name, institution, and email address in the chat box for recording your attendance. For participants who was registered via Ngampus application, please type Ngampus before your name. Chat in the chat box for asking questions to the speakers. Please follow this webinar till the end to get e-certificate by filling out the exit ticket. The link to the exit ticket will be informed at the end of the webinar. Let's get the ball rolling with the first session. Ms. Susana, the screen is yours.
Okay, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for participating in this international webinar series season 4, which is organized by Office of International Affairs in collaboration with Pangasinan State University, Philippines. I am Susana, the Head Office of International Affairs of STIKI Malang, is the moderator of this webinar. Our today's webinar is divided into two sessions. The first session is presented by Dr. Armando Junio from Pangasinan State University, Philippines. And the second session is delivered by Mr. Joshua Palandi from STIKI Malang. If you want to ask questions to the speakers today, you can chat in the chat box, or you can raise your hand, raise hand, or click raise hand in the Zoom meeting, so we can unmute yourself. So you can ask directly to the speakers of today's webinar. So please kindly use the chat box and also the raise hand features in the Zoom meeting. Let's start with the first sessions with Dr. Armando Junio from Pangasinan State University. Dr. Armando, you can start your screen.
Yes, ma'am.
Time is yours.
Good morning, everyone from the Philippines. I am Armando D. Junio of Pangasinan State University. We are sharing the file.
Yeah, you can share your screen, Dr. Armando.
Yes, ma'am. So the coronavirus 2019 outbreak. We are having some problems with the sharing of the file. So the coronavirus 2019 outbreak, we will just set for a while the sharing of the file. Okay na kanina. Screen siguro, screen. Sige.
Yeah, okay, Dr. Armando, you can start
Again,
your
good afternoon,
presentation.
everyone. Good morning, everyone. This is Armando Junio from Pangasinan State University. If you can hear me, please show me your thumbs up. Can you hear me now? Thank
I
you.
can hear you, sir.
So the coronavirus 2019 outbreak has led to closure of educational institutions. Such closure accelerated the development of the online learning environment. Script ko eh. Di ba pwedeng dito? Control.
To all participants, please kindly turn off your camera due to the connection problem. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Ganun tama. Okay. So my apology for the glitches in technical. Ayan. Problema. Meron kanina.
Dr. Armando, perhaps you can start your presentations, and we will help you with the PPT, with the PowerPoint. And could you please share us the PowerPoint so you can go on with your presentations? If is that okay for you?
Paano yung document? Ilagaw ko.
Ayan sir, i-print ko na lang sa pagbasahin.
Naka-online na. Hello. Problema ako. Hindi sa gabi lang. Nawawala din ako sa screen. Okay lang yung audio niya. Sige. This pandemic led to the closure of educational institutions. COVID-19 tested the readiness of our educational institutions to face the new normal. Just like in any other country, the Philippines responded to the challenges of this COVID-19 pandemic. Social distancing has been introduced to avoid the spread of the disease. Online learning and online education has been an alternative to respond to the challenges of the new normal. Distance learning has been an alternative to promote and respond to alternative modes of learning. Work from home has been implemented so that operations of institutions would continue in spite of the threat of spreading the coronavirus. In his paper, Educational Challenges and Opportunities of the Coronavirus, or the COVID-19 pandemic. The author, Jaime Saavedra, expressed some facts and information on the significant effect of the COVID-19 pandemic education. As of March 28, 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic is causing more than 1.6 billion children and out-of-school youth in 161 countries. This is close to 80% of the world's enrolled students. We were already experiencing a global learning crisis as many students were in school, but were not learning the fundamental skills needed for life. The World Bank's learning poverty indicates the percentage of children who cannot read and understand at age 10 stood at 53% of children in low and middle income countries before the outbreak started. This pandemic has the potential to worsen these outcomes even more if we do not act fast. The challenges of the delivery of learning. Starting the school year late or interrupting it completely disrupts the lives of many children, their parents and teachers. A lot can be done to at least reduce the impact through remote learning strategies. Richer countries are better prepared to move to online learning strategies, although with a lot of effort and challenges for teachers and parents. The appropriate strategy in most countries is to use all possible delivery modes within infrastructure that exists today. Use online tools to assure that lesson plans, videos, tutorials, and other resources are available for some students and probably most teachers, but also podcasts and other resources that require less data usage. Working with telecommunication companies to apply zero-rate policies can also facilitate learning material to be downloaded on a smartphone, which more students are likely to have. Radio and TV are also powerful tools. The advantage we have today is that though so many networks, WhatsApp or SMS, heads of education institutions can communicate effectively with parents and teachers and provide guidelines, instructions, and structure to the learning process using content delivered by radio or TV. Distance education learning is not only about online learning, but of mixed media. As many students possible, which we call blended learning. Staying engaged. Maintaining the engagement of children, particularly young secondary school students, is critical. Dropout rates are still very high in many countries, and a long period of disengagement can result in a further increase. Going to school is not only about learning math and science, but also about social relationships and peer-to-peer interactions. It is about learning to be citizen and developing social skills. We now live in the new normal. We work at home, we stay at home, but learning has to continue. We need to provide our learners the opportunity to learn in any way possible. So how can we continue to develop among our learners the learning competencies they need to acquire to prepare them for the future amidst this pandemic? How do we prepare them for their future life and work? Editors James W. Pellegrino and Margaret L. Hilton in the book Education for Life and Work, Developing Transferable Knowledge and Skills in the 21st Century, they developed a taxonomy used to classify curriculum and professional development resources based on learners' competencies. So the three major domains of learning the cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, and intrapersonal skills. The cognitive skills refers to the reasoning and memory skills of our learners. The interpersonal skills, the capacity to manage one's behavior and emotions to achieve one's goals. The intrapersonal skills, expressing ideas and interpreting and responding to message from others. Though we vary, countries vary from the approaches which we may respond to this COVID pandemic challenge, the answer lies on how the teachers provide the learners the opportunity to develop these cognitive skills, interpersonal skills, and intrapersonal skills. There are so many strategies available. There are so many things technology can offer, but other students may not be able to have the technology needed to respond to these academic activities. So using those three domains, Pellegrino clustered, which they call it now the 21st century competencies. They classify cluster competencies along the three areas. So along cognitive, we have cognitive processing and strategies, which includes, among other skills, critical thinking, problem solving, analysis, logical reason, interpretation, decision making, and executive functioning. So when we provide our learners the ability to utilize their critical thinking as provided in the activities which we may provide, we as teachers should be creative enough to think of ways on how they could possibly engage themselves in the learning process. Next, we have the cluster of competencies along cognitive. We have knowledge, which includes literacy and communication skills, active listening skills, knowledge of the discipline, ability to use evidence and assess biases in information, and digital literacy. Next, we have creativity. We have creativity and innovation. Along interpersonal competencies, we have the cluster of competencies along this domain. We have communication, collaboration, teamwork, cooperation, coordination, empathy, perspective taking, trust, service orientation, conflict resolution, and negotiation. So if we are to provide learning opportunities for our learners along interpersonal, we have to promote their ability to collaborate with each other, develop their communication skills. So one approach we can use here is blended learning and project-based learning. We can combine both print and online modules, online materials, to enable our students develop their communicative skills as they connect with other learners, providing them the ability to promote their teamwork, their cooperation with each other, their coordination, their trust, And just in case there are problems arising out of their communication, out of their approaches, it's conflict resolution, which also includes negotiation, among other skills. Another competency along interpersonal is leadership. This develops the skill, responsibility, assertive communication, self-presentation, and social influence. Through project-based learning, we can provide our learners the ability to develop their leadership traits. They're being responsible to the job assigned to them. They're being able to carry themselves as they communicate with each other. So these skills can be developed in the cluster of competencies along interpersonal. Along intrapersonal, we have the following skills. We have intellectual openness. Along intellectual openness, the skills to be developed are flexibility, adaptability, artistic and cultural appreciation, personal and social responsibility, intercultural competency, appreciation for diversity, capacity for lifelong learning, intellectual interest, and curiosity. So this cluster of competencies would develop the ability of the learners to be adaptive of whatever situation they are in, for them to appreciate not only their own culture, but the culture of other people, and would become responsible for the outcomes of their actions. So this would promote their cultural competencies and the appreciation for diversity, and this understanding that some learners may be different from them. They would learn to live together and develop a lifelong learning to develop their intellectual interest and curiosity to live with other people regardless of their differences. After intellectual openness, we have work ethic responsibility as part of the competencies along intrapersonal. This work ethic responsibility would develop the skills, initiative, self-direction, responsibility, perseverance, productivity, persistence, self-regulation, metacognitive skills, anticipate future, reflexive skills, professionalism, ethics, integrity, citizenship, and work orientation. Since this intrapersonal Jerry, technical now. My apology for the technical problem. Finally, we have self-efficacy, the last part in the competencies along intrapersonal. So we have regulation, monitoring and self-assessment, and physical and mental health. Along this interpersonal self-efficacy, students would develop assessing their own performance, which would lead to self-improvement. So what is the importance of these competencies in the lives of our learners? Cognitive competencies have been more extensively studied than have interpersonal and interpersonal competencies, showing consistent positive correlation with desirable educational, career, and health outcomes. Among interpersonal and interpersonal competencies, consciousness is most highly correlated with desirable educational, career, and health outcomes. Antisocial behavior, which is both intra and interpersonal dimensions, is negatively circulated with these outcomes. Educational attainment may continue a useful complementary strategy for developing 21st century competencies. So in times of pandemic, how do we promote these competencies? Individualized instruction, which may include online tutorial, individualized instruction, virtual reality, and modular learning. Project-based learning can also be utilized to provide learners the essential elements of learning the 21st century skills. So aside from project-based learning, we also have collaborative learning. So collaborative learning would develop among the learners the ability to work together, provide their teamwork. So what then is our role?
You are unmute, Dr. Junio.
Hello. Nawala nga eh.
So I'll just repeat. I don't have an audio earlier.
So
So
what
what
then
then
is
is
our
our
role
role as teachers
to
to
promote
promote
these
these
competencies
competencies
Yeah, we have
amidst
mute
this
we have
crisis?
unmute you now.
So
So
first, as
first, as
teachers, we
teachers,
have
we
to
have to
understand
understand
the
the
diversity of
diversity of
our
our
learners
learners
in
in
terms of
terms
the
of the
following.
following.
First,
First,
their
their
learning
learning
abilities and
abilities and
capabilities.
capabilities.
Since
Since
learners
learners
differ
differ
in
in
their
their
capability
capability
and
and
ability,
ability,
we have
we
to
have to
think of
think of
ways
ways
on
on
how we
how we
can
can
customize
customize
this
this
individualized
individualized
learning,
learning,
which we
which
can
we can
provide
provide
via
via
online,
online,
printed
printed
modules,
modules,
blended
blended
learning,
learning,
and
and
some
some
other
other
individualized
individualized
mode of
mode of
instruction,
instruction,
which may
which may
also
also
include
include
if we
if we
have
have
recorded
recorded
some
some
videos on
videos
how
on
to
how to
do
do
our
our
some
some
skills,
skills,
we
we
can
can
customize
customize
that
that
depending on
depending on
our
our
individual
individual
learning
learning
abilities and
abilities and
capabilities.
capabilities.
The
The
second
second
consideration
consideration
that we
that
have
we
to
have to
think
think
of
of
as
as
far as
far as
diversity of
diversity
our
of our
learners is
learners is
concerned
concerned is their social and cultural background. They may not come from the same economic status, the same cultural background. We have to think of ways on how we can address
these
these
differences.
differences.
So
So
finally,
finally,
along those
along those
diversity, we
diversity,
have
we have
financial and their
their
financial and
financial and
economic
economic
capabilities.
capabilities.
As I have
As I
said
have said
earlier,
earlier,
not
not
all
all
students may
students may
have the
have the
ability
ability
to
to
connect
connect
online.
online.
Speaking
Speaking
on our
on our
experience in the
experience in the
Philippines,
Philippines,
I
I
don't know
don't know
with
with
other
other
countries,
countries,
but in the
but in the
Philippines,
Philippines,
we
we
opted to
opted to
use
use
flexible
flexible
and
and
blended
blended
learning
learning
because
because
students
students
came
came
from
from
different
different.
economic levels. So most of our students may not have the capability to have their learning accessible online. So those things are to be considered if we are serious in developing the competencies required of our learners. The second role that we teachers should have to respond to these challenges while at the same time developing the competencies of our students is to learn and master a variety of methods, strategies, and approaches that would fit our learners' capabilities and needs. This includes blended learning, project-based learning, collaborative learning, competency-based learning, and some other approaches that would provide a customized approach so that our learners would learn individually and collectively. The third one, as a teacher, everyone is expected to be creative. We have to think out of the box. We have to think of ways on how we could possibly provide our learners the engagement to learn. It's not on the technology that matters. It's not the technology that creates the magic, but it's we, teachers. Teachers are the magic in the classroom, in the teaching learning process. Computers are just our instruments. Just like at present, we're having some glitches in terms of connectivity and the technical aspect of operating this mode of seminar. My apology for not being able to set it because there are some technical glitches that we encountered while we are preparing the materials. So next role, we have to engage every learner and let them feel as equally important. Let's feel. We have to give the attention to our learners so that they feel that we care for them, we love them, and they are as important as the rest in the classroom. No one should be left behind. There should be no favorites. Each one should be given the equal opportunity to learn. and be engaged in the learning process. And finally, we assess learning outcomes not because of grades, but to improve the learning process. It would be a continuous cycle of development. The result of the assessment should not serve as ways to determine who's the best in class, but it would be our basis to think of ways on how would we deliver the instruction in a higher level next time. So with this, I think that's my humble sharing of my knowledge regarding the topic pedagogy learning competencies as we respond to the COVID-19. So from Pangasinan State University, I would like to thank everyone. And again, my apology for the technical glitches. Thank you very much for listening.
Yeah, thank you very much, Dr. Junio, for the presentations that gave us highlight on how online learning in this emergency situations should be conducted. And what is it? I think that we need to be a creative teachers to create online learning more engaging for the students. Okay, we start with the question and answer session. So to all participants that wants to who wants to ask questions, you can raise your hand so we can unmute you, or chat in the chat box for the questions. While we are waiting for the questions from the participant, I have a questions for you, Doctor. Do you have any suggestions on how to maintain the interaction in online learning? Particularly in the student side, they tend to be passive during the online learning. So how we as teachers can help them to be more active? Do you have any suggestions?
Ito, bakit hindi siya naririnig?
Should I repeat my question? Dr. Junio, can you hear me?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah.
I can now hear you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
My question is, do you have any suggestions on how to maintain the interaction in online learning? Because as we know, during the online learning nowadays or currently, the students tend to be more passive in participating in the learning. So do you have any suggestions how the students can be active?
One way of engaging our learners to become participative and active during online learning activities is to provide them experiences or activities that are within their interests. So as learners, we have to understand, as I have said, their very nature, what makes them fascinated, what makes them engaged. So depending on the level of learning, whether in the primary, secondary, or tertiary, we have to consider their interests. We have to consider and think of the movies they watch, the games they're engaged in, so that once we give examples, we provide activities as if we belong to their age level. And I believe that would make them be attentive and be engaged in our educational online learning activities.
Thank you. So it means that we need to create interesting activities related to their life, for example, to
Yes, ma'am.
help
Yes,
them
ma'am.
interest. Okay.
We should think of ways or be like them, the way they think, the way they are interested with the recent engagement they have in their particular age level.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you so much. And I have one question in the chat box. How effective do you think online learning for the students?
I believe it depends. Speaking in behalf of the Philippine setting, I don't think majority of our students are ready for online learning. Not every part of the Philippines have internet access. So just like what we experience now, we are delayed in the connection, and as far as technical aspect is concerned, I don't think we are as effective as other countries. But for generally, online learning can be promoted. I think it's on a certain extent effective, provided the skill of the teacher is excellent in preparing the materials, in providing the engagement as far as the communication, the communication aspect of the online material, because these materials needs to be interactive. Though remote, there should be an interaction between the teacher and the learner via the online material. And after the activities has been performed, there should be a revalida to determine if the learner is the actual person who accomplishes the task. So I believe those are the considerations, in my opinion, to know and determine the effectiveness of online learning materials as utilized by the learners in these pandemic times.
Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you. So it means that we need to, create online activity that is that help the students to be more interest to the learning and the use of virtual or online application. Is that right?
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah, okay. Okay, is there any other questions to Dr. Junio? Okay, there is another question here from.
What would you increase?
Yeah, what should we do to increase student motivation during online learning?
I think the best way to increase their motivation level is to think of the most appropriate, something that is catchy, something that best interests them. For an example, one game in the Philippines is very familiar among kids. It's the ML. We call it ML. It's called the Mobile Legend. If you mention Mobile Legend among kids in the Philippines, everybody knows it as if it's one of the best subjects in the school, but actually it's not. So they are all interested in this game. So if you use that ML, that Mobile Legend, as your introductory statement or a sort of a replica, or there is a connection to that game, I'm sure students would participate well, they will be curious, and they would involve themselves in the process. So that's one way. We think of ways. We have to understand their nature. We have to be observant enough to know what really excites them, what makes them excited as far as their engagement to learning activities is concerned. I think that's the best way to increase motivation among our learners, especially when using online resources.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So I hope that that is answered the questions about how to increase student motivation during online learning. Okay, I think that is also the end of the first session with Dr. Armando Jr. from Pangasinan State University. And if I'm okay. Okay, this is, I found something in the chat box and this is quite interesting. Please share the best practices in the Philippines, what the school do if the students cannot participate in the online learning due to lack of facilities. I think this is also related to the, what is it? To the connections, internet connections problem, I think. Could you please
Yes,
share
ma'am.
before I end?
What we do is to have blended learning. It's actually a combination of a modular, a printout, which is supplemented by materials online. So in developing these materials, the teacher considers the capability of the learner. So it's not purely online. They still go to school in a very limited time to have a face-to-face contact with their teacher. The teacher guides them on the printed module at least once a week for a 3-unit course. They agree on the guide, the schedule. So the teacher prepares the syllabus, the teacher prepares the learning materials. They agree on the mode of answering the requirements for the course, and eventually monitors the accomplishment of those tasks via text, video call, messenger, or some other internet-based communication. And at the end of the course, the learner responds to the activities and is guided by a performance rubric so that the learner would assess how well has he performed in compliance with the requirements of the course. At the same time, the teacher would determine the accomplishment of the task by determining the competencies which the learner have developed in completing the entire learning guide. So it's a collaboration between the teacher and the learner as they meet on those aspects of learning engagement. Because as I have said, not everyone in the Philippines have the capability to have their online learning. So that's what we do in the Philippines.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah, so it means that the students can, what is it, have an arrangement with the teacher to meet offline.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, so I think that we need to combine the low technology and also high technology to make the online learning successful.
Yes, ma'am. That's the Philippine experience.
Okay, so I think using WhatsApp or email or Facebook that span a lower bandwidth it will be also possible for the students to join with the online learning.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So,
And we
yeah.
we call it flexible because it can be done in both ways. So it's a flexible learning mode.
Yeah, okay. Flexible learning mode, online learning mode. Yeah, okay. Okay, thank you, Dr. Junio, for the presentations and for the knowledge. It's very useful for us during this pandemic and or emergency situations in the future. Thank you very much.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So on the first sessions, we can make a conclusions that as a teacher, we need to be a magical teachers in the online learning, because this is important for us to think about the students' competency, students' knowledge, and also students' capability in online learning. So I think that make the learning competency is as the priority rather than the technology.
Yes, ma'am. I believe, ma'am. Yes.
Yeah, I think that learning competency should come first, and then the interactions and the technology can later, because the technology is still. Okay, thank you so much for the for the presentations. I hope that you can stay with us until the end of the webinar, sir.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so before we move to the second sessions with Mr. Joshua Palandi from STIKI Malang, I would like to inform to all participants that you can type in the chat box for the to record your attendance, and at the end of the webinar, we will provide you with the link to the exit ticket where you can record yourself using the Google form, and also it will help us with the certificate, in sending the certificate. So we stay with us until the end, so you can record yourself again to get the certificate, because you need to access the exit ticket link. Okay, and also we would like to inform you that perhaps you have problems with the internet connections. We are also online on YouTube, STIKI Malang YouTube channel, so you can visit us on the channel, and we will share the link of the YouTube in the chat box later. Okay, so I hope Mr. Joshua is already here with us. Are you ready, Mr. Joshua?
Okay, thank you.
Okay, you can start
Yes, I'll
sharing
try
your screen
to.
and introduce yourself.
Yeah, I'll try to share the screen first. Okay. Hello, everybody. I'm Joshua, and I'm a lecturer in STIKI Malang. Okay. Is that clear, my voice, Ma'am
It's
Susan?
clear.
Okay, thank you. Okay, the first I will say thank you to Ahmad, yeah, that opened this webinar, and thank you for Ma'am Susan for giving me a chance to share my knowledge. Okay. Yeah, it's nice to meet Mr. Armando too here online. And of course, all of participants. It's nice to meet you all. Okay, let's start. I will share my paper entitled Exploring Expected Inputs and endpoint outcome of e-learning practice. Yeah. As an introduction, there are several statements that educational institutions have implemented e-learning as the use of technological developments that can significantly help students improve their learning experience. Educational institutions implementing e-learning are to improve student performance. Yeah, it is the first thing I think. Educational institutions realize that e-learning is an essential element of a long-term strategy. Look, my note there, because I think this is important. Yeah. E-learning is an essential element of a long-term strategy. And the use of e-learning in education institutions last few decades has progressed significantly. Sorry, I didn't share the slide. Wait. I think I made a mistake. Share screen. Okay. Should I repeat?
I think you can go on to the next slide, sir.
Okay, continue, yeah.
It's clear with this.
Okay. But let's see what happened in real life. Do you know that e-learning project implementation can face slow progress? Yeah, if we see e-learning something grow fastly, but I found that e-learning project implementation can face slow progress. And the second, do you believe that the dropout rates of e-learning education are usually much higher than the traditional classroom-based teaching? Wow. I found it when I read an article. Yeah, they write this fact, yeah, particularly in the developed world. So, do you agree e-learning is not an out-of-the-box solution? Okay. Let's see. What is the important thing? Yeah, of course, e-learning is still a solution, but that does not mean that all problems are solved when implementing e-learning. Okay, e-learning must be carefully planned by considering all the main components in order to increase the power of e-learning and to eliminate the weaknesses or obstacles. Okay, let's start. The challenges in e-learning that will be studied are technological, administrative, organizational, and human aspects of e-learning. These factors must be identified and controlled to eliminate unwanted obstacles. Thus, in order to plan comprehensive solutions to deal with challenges in e-learning, it is necessary to identify the elements that influence the e-learning. Before the word e-learning booming, there are various other names were used, like web-based learning, web-based instruction, internet-based training, advanced distributed learning, online learning, and mobile learning. Yeah, that's the suppose this synonym for e-learning. Okay. An understanding of the definition of e-learning is necessary to develop a clear vision of education. If we do not understand the definition of e-learning well, then this condition will be considered as a barrier to the success of implementing e-learning. Do you believe it? Yeah, let's see. Okay, it means we must understand at least one definition of e-learning. Yeah. Actually, I want to ask you to write your definition, your own definition, but I think it is it takes time. I prepare one slide in menti.com. If you don't mind, please go to menti.com and use the code 311266 to define e-learning.
Could you repeat the code?
311266. Yeah. Why I emphasize this? Because the statements before, if we do not understand the definition of e-learning well, this condition will be considered as a barrier to the success of implementing e-learning. So at least we must understand one definition. It is okay if you citate from other researcher or from a book. It is okay of e-learning. But it's just okay. Let's make it focus. Okay, from the definition, we can see that some of the definition focus on the use of ICT for delivering learning processes or technical perspective, while others focus on the role of technology to support learning and the process of learning, and the benefit of implementing e-learning. In our context now, in the context of our topic, e-learning refers to the use of the technology tools and applications as either a resource utilized by the students to aid their study or as a means for delivering learning courses and content. Okay, I see one definition. Again, focus on the use of ICT for delivering learning processes. Nice. Yeah, we must see the benefit to make e-learning clearly. It is important to cover briefly the major benefits of e-learning in order to provide a context aimed at explaining why e-learning is crucial for the development of the learning process and the reasons why e-learning provides more efficient learning environments compared with the traditional learning experience. Okay. We have three benefits. Yeah. In the right side, we can read the benefit are delivering effective learning, enabling interaction and communication, and providing flexibility in learning delivery. Yeah. The first benefit. E-learning has the potential to create successful and meaningful learning environments that motivate the learners and offer powerful tools for interaction and communication. The benefit of delivering effective learning, I write 3 points there. Using stimulations created by software, such as Flash, Shockwave, can support the cognitive work of analyzing data, manipulating models, and exploring ideas and concepts. Using multimedia enrichment resources develops the learner's understanding and enriches their educational experiences. And the third benefit from delivering effective learning creates an opportunity for learners to learn according to their individual learning styles and preferred cognitive style, be it visual, audio, or text-oriented, and allows learners to arrange the content and knowledge for their own needs and learning styles, and to improve the quality of learning experience and support learning by offering differentiated learning. Okay, while I present this, I saw many participants write the definition of e-learning. Okay, that's good. Because we need to understand at least one definition of e-learning. Okay, the second benefit of e-learning, enabling interaction and communication. E-learning has the potential to enhance the traditional communication patterns between students and teachers and students themselves by creating a new learning environment. Okay. 3 points. The relationship between teachers and students is no longer a one-way relationship, but rather it is about creating more collaboration and interaction between students to increase their participation and involvement in the classroom. Yeah. E-learning can be more flexible and often involves technologies such as audio, chatting, video conferencing, and online discussion, which provide learners the opportunity to interact with teachers and other students effectively and flexibly. Students play a vital role in collaborative learning environments as they participate in discussions among the whole class or within smaller groups, search for information and exchange opinions with their peers, where there is both shared and individual responsibility for their success in the learning process. Okay. The third benefit, providing flexibility in learning delivery. Literature indicates that educational settings have been found to share certain common beliefs about the practical benefits that e-learning can provide in delivering flexible learning. And look at 3 points at the right side. E-learning eliminates the barriers of time, creating universal learning on demand opportunities for people, companies, and countries. E-learning transcends geographical barriers and offers new learning environments. E-learning can be provided by the various forms of learning materials, which allow the learner to select from a variety of options based on their needs and demands. Okay. After the benefit, we must look forward to the challenges. What is the challenges in e-learning? Okay. While e-learning provides several benefits to educational settings, which enhance the quality of education and develop the learning environments, conversely, there remain many challenges which hinder the exploration and utilization of its opportunities. There are various challenges to e-learning initiatives and projects. I just citate 2 challenges from Kan and from Al-Karang engineer. Yeah. These can be categorized in the following groupings: human or individuals, technological, institutional and organizational, environmental, managerial and pedagogical, and ethical. Yeah. And Al-Karang engineer put forward their work on e-learning barriers and challenges and group them into 3 categories: management, technical, and language issues. Any others? You can add more. Okay, before exploring the factors, we need to know several existing e-learning frameworks. Let's see several frameworks from Abu Saineh, Sun, Malik, and Khan. Okay. They have 5 components from Zairi, 6 components from Sun, and 5 components from Malik, and 8 components from Khan. Yeah. Why we must know this? Because we will compare the factors that written by them before in this column. Okay, let's see the first framework. E-learning frameworks by Abu Saineh and Zairi. This framework combines 5 dimensions. There are pedagogy, institution, learner support, technology, and faculty. Okay. The framework emphasizes the interrelation between these dimensions in order to achieve the effectiveness of e-learning. The framework addressed the need of institutions to achieve the requirement of implementing e-learning by linking pedagogy, faculty, and technology. An important contribution of the framework is to address the need for evaluation of the existing factors and to define the requirements for e-learning program implementation. Okay. The next frameworks by Sun, we can see the chart there. The framework is an attempt to broaden the understanding of e-learning by identifying the critical factors affecting learner satisfaction with e-learning. Their research developed its conceptual framework based on the 6 factors, which included 13 indicators to ensure the successful of e-learning design and operation. 3, 2 items. Okay, 13 indicators. The main contribution of this work was to emphasize the importance of the institutions in strengthening their e-learning implementation and further improving learner satisfaction. In addition, the framework provided the factors that have an impact on e-learner satisfaction. Okay. Okay, e-learning frameworks by Malik. Malik's approach was to consider the factors influencing student satisfaction towards online education as a base for developing a conceptual framework. The framework combined 5 factors: student, instructor, design, course, and technical factors. This framework aimed to investigate the factors that play influential roles towards students' web-based learning satisfaction. Okay, the last, e-learning frameworks by Khan. He developed an e-learning framework called 8-component framework for e-learning, as in the picture. Yeah. There are institutional, pedagogical, technological, interface design, evaluation, management, resource support, and ethical. According to the framework, an e-learning system designer needs to address the 8 dimensions of e-learning to create a successful e-learning experience. Okay, from 4 frameworks before, we can compose another framework of a success of e-learning. I try to make a picture with showing the factors that influencing e-learning: student characteristic, teacher characteristic, technology, and design and content, like this. So the framework is like this. Success of e-learning can increase by these factors: students, teacher, technology, design, and content. And the indicator is that students have 3 indicators, teacher have 3 indicators, and so on. Let's continue to describing more about student characteristic. Factor number 1, student's characteristic. And the item or the indicators: computer skills, student attitude towards e-learning, students' motivation. Okay. E-learning is about using new technology to provide flexibility in learning, to deliver and enable interaction and communication between students and teachers, and to deliver effective learning. Therefore, the progress and growth and implementation of e-learning will greatly depend upon students' characteristic. One of the important factors that influence e-learning is computer skills and competencies in order to be successful in the e-learning era. Another factor that influences e-learning implementation is students' attitude toward e-learning. Students' behavior and attitude determine their satisfaction and acceptance of e-learning. A more positive attitude towards a newly introduced technology enhances the experience and ultimately influences students' satisfaction rates. Moreover, other factors that determine the acceptance of technology by the learner are motivational and learners' control factors. It is 11:53. I will make it fast. The second is teacher's characteristic. In an e-learning environment, it is necessary for the instructor to acquire a new set of skills and roles, since the latest technologies and their rapid development creates challenges for adoption, even though the same tools increase efficacy. In addition to students' characteristics, teachers' characteristics are also considered as an important factor that affects e-learning. Okay, jump to the point number 4. Teachers' characteristics can be assumed to be an important factor in e-learning and must be taken into consideration when implementing and developing successful and effectiveness e-learning. Technology characteristic. There are only two indicators: quality of technology and effectiveness of IT. Of course, technology is the core enabler of e-learning. To achieve a successful implementation of e-learning, the quality of technology and the effectiveness of information technology need to be considered. Okay, I jump to point number 3. The quality of technology and the efficiency of the infrastructure encourage students and teachers to interact with the multimedia resource in e-learning environments and increase the satisfaction of the users with regard to e-learning implementation. Design and content characteristic. There are two indicators too. In addition to students' characteristics, teachers' characteristic, technology, content design is also considered as significant factors that affect e-learning. These characteristics include the accuracy, authenticity, accessibility, the design, and the appropriateness of outputs. And there is a direct correlation between the quality of content and a higher satisfaction with learning systems. Okay, let's continue. Factors affecting the successful implementation of e-learning from students' characteristics. Remember, we have 3 points: computer skills, student attitudes, and student motivation. Okay. Computer skills. It is a significant determinant in the acceptance and satisfaction of distance learning. And computer competency plays an essential role in students' acceptance of distance learning. Point number 2, attitudes. It was also found as a significant determinant of behavioral intention to adopt e-learning. It is important. And the third, from students' characteristic, student motivation. Motivation is a significant factor that impacts on the successful implementation of e-learning environment. Let's see factors affecting the successful implementation of e-learning from teachers' characteristic. There are 3 points: teachers' attitude, pedagogy and teaching style, and control of technology. Teachers were more positive about their attitude towards computers and intention to use computers than their perceptions of the usefulness of the computer and their control of the computer. Relationship between pedagogy and the e-learning environment suggests that the role of pedagogy and teachers' beliefs about teaching and learning with ICT are vital to the integration of e-learning within the learning environment. Okay, the last, from teacher characteristic. So if you are teacher, me too, we have to emphasize on this point. There's 3 points. Several researchers have provided evidence of the significant impact of the control of technology on the use and implementation of e-learning, which is linked to pedagogy and the learning process. Okay, let's continue to the third factor, technology. There are 2 indicators: quality of technology and effectiveness of IT. Yeah. Reliability of the technology was among the most important factors that impact on quality of e-learning. We must remember this about technology. The efficient and effective use of IT in delivering a course or program is of critical importance to the success and student acceptance of learning. So I think it is related to the design and content. Yeah, so we can continue to the fourth factor, design and content. David, on 1989, defined perceived ease of use as the degree to which a person believes that using a particular system would be free of effort. Yeah. And the quality of content. The quality of content, such as overall course design, teaching material, and interactive discussion arrangement, is a significant factor in e-learning environment. Yeah. Okay, we come to the summary. So, this conceptual framework is one of the first attempts to explore the critical factors in terms of e-learning implementation. Of course, we have many things to do after this. But at the same time, it also aims to understand and examine teachers and students' perceptions towards e-learning. After we know the summary, what we can do, I just have 5 recommendations to increase the e-learning. The first is develop learning activities, facilitate engagement between students and teachers, build the capacity of the teachers, provide supportive infrastructure, and create an e-content bank. Okay, I think that's all from my presentation. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, thank you very much, Pak Joshua, for sharing the presentations about the input and also endpoints to related to the e-learning. And I read in the chat box, there are some questions here. The first one is, we know that the teacher or lecturer not knowing students' real condition, how if many student tasks done by the others? So I think this is about authenticity, originality of the students' work, how we deal with that.
Yeah, I think Yeah, that's normal. Why? Because we need to work collaboratively. If our mind, negative, I think it's not a good perception. We must believe that students work himself. It is related to the how teachers and students relation. I think if we can give them a good instruction or motivation, I think he will do himself. It could be he did his or her work alone. It can be they work collaboratively with his friends, and it is okay. I think that's my answer, ma'am.
Okay, so it means related to the originality. It is better for us to trust the students that they can work that they do the work by themselves.
Yeah, we must remind them, the students, about the competency. Remember, you must able to do this. I think he or the student will do better for their work or homework, like that.
Okay. Okay. I think that remind them also about the plagiarism actions in the academic lab is also important.
Yes.
Okay. Okay. Thank you so much for the answer and also the questions that I hope that it answer the questions from Ibu Purwati Ningsih. And then there's another questions. This question is for Dr. Armando and Mr. Joshua. It's quite long questions. So I simply put, it is something like, what do you think about the situation in which the student just submit the homework or the assignments? So they don't, they just work on the assignments without, just submit in the their assignment. What do you think about that kind of students?
Is it for me or?
Both, actually, for Dr. Junio and you. Perhaps you can answer first.
Okay. Yeah, the first, we must appreciate what the students do. So if they just submit their homework, for me, it is okay. The positive thinking of for the students, I will assume that he understands what is his or her project, or he understands all the material. So he wouldn't do another project or homework, just submit something a must do from the teacher, like that. As long as they do with, what is it? They understand the risk. Yeah, I think they understand the risk. This is why the teacher must remind them frequently about the competency of the subject of their course. I think this is more important to remind them about the competency. I think it is not it's not good for us to ask why you just submit your homework like that. Yeah, that's my answer.
Okay, I think what is it? Pak Mahendra will ask you directly, so it can be, what is it? You can understand particularly what is the question. So please, I will unmute Pak Mahendra. Pak Mahendra, are you with us? I hope that he is with us. So Mahendra, you can answer ask your questions directly. Perhaps I missed the what do you mean with your questions?
Okay, I'm not quite good in English, so let me try this shortly. Yeah, I try my best. As I wrote at the chats, the problem is when we are lectures, there's so many things, so many what do we call this? So many ways to make the students or learners active and stay put in the course, yeah, that we already designed. But this is also connected to Mrs. Purwatiningsih, Ms. Purwatiningsih asked before. We are unable to control or maintain the activity of the students beyond our reach. It's like when we give them a task to do. So a lot of learners in my class, they simply ignored it. They just simply ignored it. I don't know. This is perhaps because a lot of people are shocked by the pandemic, So in this position, we think about, I don't know, how to make this course keep going on. So I try to lower the standard, the outcome learnings, which the first maybe I put it at 100%. So I decrease it to the lower I can, so they can pass the they have the passing limits. I don't know. Maybe host can help me to
Okay.
Maybe Miss Susan, maybe you can help me with these terms.
Okay. Yeah, sometimes there are a lot of things that beyond the control of the teacher to maintain the learning process, which are unable to record or to monitor the students' learning process during the online learning. It means that the problem with the learners is mostly about the motivations in doing their homework, because we know that in the online classroom they don't have, or we don't have any door to lock them, or we cannot ask them to stay in the classroom during that particular schedule, for example. And we cannot, it is also a problem for us to record their their progress, their learning progress, their motivation, their interest, and also whether they are doing their homework or not. And then some educators were having their actions, their private actions to deal with the situation, such as lowering the standard of their outcomes learning to facilitate this kind of learners. So what do you think about that? That is the Pak Mahendra's mean with the questions, I think.
Yeah. Okay, I've got it. I make a note. The first, you said about the complexity. This is, we need to make it simple. So simplify. What's the problem? Simplify it. And if we cannot control the activity, it doesn't mean the learning process doesn't work, right? I think, in my opinion, you just cannot see directly what he or they did, just like that. But as what we can do, look at the my sharing presentation. Point number 2, we must have an engagement with the student. So if you cannot see the students directly, use your gadget, use your social media or another. Just please don't ignore them. This is the first thing. Do not ignore them. Yeah, it means you must stay connected with them via WhatsApp or email or other. And please don't decrease the standard. Yeah. Please don't decrease the standard. What I mean is make it run as you want. If the student cannot achieve the goal, yeah, that's the, what is it? It is your authority to do something for him, for her, for your students. But don't decrease the standard. Yeah, because standard is standard. Just run like the standard you write. And that's why we need a rubric. If you have your standard, yeah, make it sure with your rubric. It will help you very much. And the last, I will give you a suggestion. Students need a trust. So trust them as a student. If you give them homework, trust them that they will do the homework. If you give them project, trust them to accomplish their project. Students need a trust from their lecturers. I think that's my answer, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. Perhaps Dr. Junio, you can add more to the answer of the questions. I repeat the questions, perhaps that you missed the question. So it is related to the, there are lots of things that beyond the control of the teacher to maintain the learning process, which are unable for the teacher to record or to monitor of the students' assignments, the students' work, the students' learning process. It means that the problem is more on the learner's motivations and interests that the teacher cannot deal with, or the teacher cannot tackle the problem. So it means that it should be the students themselves. And then some educators were having their private action to deal with the situation, to solve the problem, such as lowering the standard of their outcomes, the learning outcomes, to facilitate the students facilitate this kind of students, or to overcome the problems related to the situation. So we don't want the students to just in quote unquote just submit the homework without meeting the or matching the learning competency. What do you suggest, sir?
Talking about our experience in the Philippines, particularly the Pangasinan State University, we require our students to prepare a student portfolio. This student portfolio is a collection of evidences of their learning accomplishment, which prior to their preparation has been agreed upon by the teacher and by the student. So if we are to look into their motivational level in accomplishing the task, since the students agreed on the criteria, on the outcomes of their learning, they own the process. They are involved in the process. They had been engaged in identifying the criteria, the indicators of performance. And since they agree on this performance criteria and output, they will be motivated enough to accomplish it because it doesn't come from the teacher alone. The standard need not be lowered because in the first place, before arriving at the final decision on what the standards would be, the students are consulted. There is collaboration between the teacher and the learner regarding the outcomes. So if we are to adopt it using online approach in teaching, from the very start, the teacher and the learner should meet and agree on certain modalities. If they can do video call and talk about it, they have to arrive at an understanding of what needs to be done and how it should be rated. I believe if we do this, at the end of the course, the student will be proud to present his or her output because that would boost his morale, that would boost his accomplishment as an individual. Remember in the last competency about self-efficacy I have mentioned, it goes with it their ability to show themselves, to project on who they really are and what they can do. So I believe that alone is a motivation for them to finish their task at certain times and the quality of the output they are expected to have. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So I can summarize that it means that we need to trust the students because of
Yes, yes, ma'am. As
yeah,
mentioned by the speaker,
yeah,
there really is a need.
We need to trust the students that they are able to work their homework, and I think that this is also important to develop the honesty of the students, as Ms. Mitzi Makarek a statement in the chat box. I agree with that also. So, but we need to also spend our time to monitor the students and help them at least asking about their progress.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. Okay. So there's one last question for Pak Joshua. What do you mean with the e-content bank? What is it about, and how do we prepare it? This is the last question
Okay.
of this session.
E-content, yeah, it is a content, yeah, it is a content. E-content bank, I mean, we have to collect many resources. It is related about the quantity of the material. Yeah, just like you have many kind of tasks, you have many kind of projects, just like that. E-content bank. Just like that, ma'am.
Oh, it's a collection of our online material.
Yes.
Okay. I think this is also important for our offline, for print out material, is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for Dr. Junio and Mr. Joshua Palandi for the fruitful and knowledgeable presentations of today's webinar. This is the International Webinar Series 4 that is conducted by the Office of International Affairs of STIKI Malang. On behalf of STIKI Malang, I would like to say thank you very much for Dr. Armando Junio and also Mr. Joshua Palandi for the time and for being able to share the knowledge with us. And also, I would like to share my gratitude and appreciations to all participants that has joining us today with the webinar. Okay, thank you so much. And I will back to screen to the host for the next session.
Hello, everyone. Here is the exit ticket. The exit ticket can be accessed until tomorrow. And before we end the webinar, let's have a photo session with the speakers. Please turn on your camera and give your beautiful smile. Please hold a minute. Please turn on your camera and I will take a picture of you.
I have already typed the exit ticket link in the chat box. tiny.cc/ewebinar4 -4.
Udah.
Okay. Huh? Okay, this is the link to the exit ticket. I have already also typed in the chat box, tiny.cc/ewebinar-4. And please follow our YouTube channel and also our Instagram for the next international webinar series or other webinar series from STIKI Malang. The exit ticket can be accessed until tomorrow afternoon, and the certificate will be issued and sent to your email 10 days after that. And the international office affairs will have another webinar next month. We will share again to you the informations.
Thank you to Dr. Armando Junio, and also Mr. Joshua Palandi, and also Ms. Susana. On behalf of STIKI Malang, Indonesia, and Pangasinan State University, Philippines, I would like to deliver our gratitude and appreciation to all participants. See you in the next webinar series. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.